Most people think a frozen waffle is basically the same thing as a homemade waffle: flour, water, a little oil, and something sweet. But walk down an American freezer aisle and the differences can be enormous. Some boxes are surprisingly simple. Others pack in far more sodium, refined ingredients, added sugar, or processing than the front of the package suggests. And one recent recall shows that even a familiar-looking waffle can become a food safety story. In October 2024, the FDA reported that Treehouse Foods expanded a voluntary recall covering frozen waffles, Belgian waffles, and pancakes made at one facility because of possible listeria contamination. The affected labels included Great Value, 365 Organic, Good and Gather, Food Lion, Breakfast Best, Hannaford, Harris Teeter, and several others. The FDA says that recall has since been completed and terminated. So this does not mean those brands are currently unsafe. It does mean one thing is worth remembering: a brand name alone is not a health guarantee. So today, we're looking at 10 waffle brands and products I'd think twice about buying, based on their labels, nutrition profiles, and documented recall history where relevant. Then we'll finish with 3 options that stand out for very different reasons. And the first one is especially important because it was sold at one of America's biggest retailers. Number 10. Breakfast Best. Breakfast Best sounds like exactly what you want from a freezer waffle. The name practically promises a better morning, but the label tells a more complicated story. Its home-style waffles have been listed at roughly 130 calories per 2 waffle serving in nutrition databases, while the brand's products were among those included in the 2020 for Treehouse Foods recall. Again, that recall was not a permanent verdict on the brand. The FDA specifically says the recall was completed. But when a product has been part of a documented manufacturing recall, it's reasonable to check the exact package, lot information, and current label instead of assuming every box is identical. And there is another issue. Waffles are easy to underestimate because the small squares look harmless. Then comes syrup, butter, fruit spread, or second serving. Suddenly breakfast is no longer just the waffle. The practical lesson is simple. Don't judge the nutritional quality from the picture on the front. And that matters even more with number 9. Number 9. Food Lion Homestyle Waffles. Food Lion's current product page lists the waffles at 210 calories, 500 milligrams of sodium, 2 grams of total sugar, and 6 grams of protein. The sugar number may look excellent at first, but the sodium number is the one that deserves attention. 500 milligrams is 22% of the daily value for sodium from just 2 waffles. That's a useful reminder about food labels. The most eye-catching number isn't always the most important one. A product can be relatively low in sugar and still contribute a substantial amount of sodium to your meal. Food Lion also tells shoppers that product information can change and recommends checking the physical package. That's good advice for every frozen food aisle, because formulations and serving sizes can change. And this brings us to a product that illustrates how a familiar low-cost label can hide a very different history. Number 8. Great Value Homestyle Waffles. Great Value is one of the most recognizable store brands in America, and that familiarity can create an automatic trust effect. If you've bought something from Walmart for years, it is easy to assume the next box is equally straightforward. But certain Great Value waffles were included in the 2020 for Treehouse Foods recall. The FDA's list included Great Value Homestyle and Buttermilk waffles, along with several other Great Value varieties. The recall involved possible listeria contamination from one manufacturing facility. There were no confirmed illnesses linked to those recalled products at the time of the announcement, and the FDA later marked the recall completed. So this is not a reason to panic over a current box. It is a reason to pay attention. There is also a bigger consumer lesson here. Store brands can look completely different from their national brand competitors, yet the manufacturing story behind them may be more complicated than the logo suggests. And if you think organic automatically solves that problem, wait until number 7. Number 7. 365 Organic Waffles. The 365 Organic label is designed to communicate reassurance. Organic ingredients, a premium-looking package, a Whole Foods association. But organic does not mean nutritionally perfect, and it does not make a product immune to manufacturing problems. The FDA's 2020 for recall specifically included 365 everyday organic homestyle mini waffles and organic blueberry waffles. The affected products had best buy dates stretching into 2025, and the reason was potential listeria contamination connected to the manufacturing facility. The important distinction is that the recall was completed, so don't turn an old recall into a claim that every 365 waffle today is dangerous. That's not what the evidence says. Instead, use the story to understand a broader principle. Labels such as organic, natural, or wholesome describe certain characteristics of a product. They don't automatically tell you how much sodium, added sugar, protein, fiber, or processing you're getting. And number 6 makes that lesson even clearer. Number 6. Good and Gather Organic Mini Waffles. Target's Good and Gather brand also appeared on the FDA's recall list, specifically for 365. No, Good and Gather Organic Homestyle Mini Waffles were among the affected products. Manufactured at the Treehouse facility, the product was recalled because of the same potential listeria issue. Again, that action has been completed. But mini waffles create another psychological trap: portion perception. A mini waffle looks like a tiny amount of food. Put several on a plate, add syrup, and the visual impression can be completely different from the nutritional total. That's why I would never evaluate a waffle by size alone. I would compare the serving size, calories, sodium, added sugar, fiber, and protein. And now we're getting closer to the most interesting part of this investigation, because the next 4 products show how dramatically different 2 boxes can be, even when they occupy the same freezer shelf. Number 5. Hannaford Homestyle Waffles. Hannaford's Homestyle Waffles were among the products listed in the 2020 for Treehouse Foods recall. The FDA's list included multiple Hannaford varieties, including Homestyle, blueberry, chocolate chip, multigrain, and reduced-fat buttermilk waffles. That range is revealing. A shopper might assume that a multigrain or reduced-fat label automatically makes a waffle the smarter choice. But those words need context. Multigrain simply means multiple grains. It does not necessarily mean the product is mostly whole grain. Reduced fat does not automatically mean lower sodium or lower added sugar. The same principle applies across the freezer aisle. Marketing language gives you a starting point, not a final answer. And if you are shopping at a store with a huge frozen section, the next brand may be even easier to overlook. Number 4. Harris Teeter Waffles. Harris Teeter's blueberry, buttermilk, homestyle, and multigrain waffles appeared on the FDA's 2020 for recall list. The products were distributed across the United States and Canada, with specific lot and date ranges identified by the company. That detail matters because food recalls are not vague warnings. They are usually tied to specific products, codes, dates, or manufacturing locations. That's why responsible consumer advice has to distinguish between a recalled product and an entire brand. So why put Harris Teeter this high? Because store brand convenience can make people less likely to compare labels. You grab the familiar box, you recognize the store logo, and breakfast is done. But the smarter habit is to flip the box over, and what you see there can completely change the decision. Number 3. Essential Homestyle Waffles. Essential is another Treehouse Foods label that appeared in the 2020 for recall. The FDA identified Essential Homestyle Waffles among the products potentially affected by the manufacturing issue. This is where the story stops being about individual brands and becomes about supply chains. A grocery store may sell dozens of different labels, but those labels can come from a surprisingly small number of manufacturers. One production problem can therefore affect products wearing completely different. That is why the front of the package can be misleading without actually being deceptive. The brand tells you who is selling the product. It does not always tell you who physically made it. And now we reach number 2, a brand that demonstrates exactly how wide that supply chain web can stretch. Number 2, Full Circle Waffles. Full Circle's gluten-free blueberry and homestyle gluten-free waffles were also included in the FDA's 2020 for Treehouse recall. Gluten-free is another label consumers often interpret as meaning healthier. But gluten-free answers a specific dietary question. It does not automatically answer questions about sodium, sugar, fiber, calories, or protein. In fact, when shoppers see several positive claims on a box, they can experience what researchers sometimes call a health halo effect. One positive characteristic makes the entire product feel healthier. That's why this investigation isn't about declaring every recalled or highly processed waffle terrible. It's about learning to separate the marketing story from the nutrition story. And that brings us to number 1. Number 1. Great value, $365. And other Treehouse manufactured waffle products with affected recall dates. Yes, I'm putting a group at number 1 because the most important warning isn't actually one brand. It's the manufacturing event itself. The FDA reported that Treehouse Foods expanded its recall in October 2024 to cover all waffle and pancake products made at one facility that were still within their shelf life. The list included dozens of labels and product varieties. This is the moment where the freezer aisle suddenly looks different. A box can say organic. It can say multigrain. It can say home style. It can carry a major supermarket's name. But if the exact product and date fall inside a recall, none of those front-of-box promises matter. And remember, the FDA says the recall has been completed and terminated. So the takeaway is not fear. The takeaway is verification. Now, here's the twist. After looking at 10 products or product lines I'd approach cautiously, the answer isn't to stop eating waffles. It's to choose them more intelligently. And 3 options make that much easier. The first is Kodiak Power Waffles. Kodiak's current buttermilk and vanilla power waffles list 12 grams of protein per 2 waffle serving and use 100% whole grain wheat and oat flour. The ingredient list also includes whey protein isolate, eggs, buttermilk, and canola oil. That doesn't make Kodiak a magical health food. It still contains added sugar, and some varieties are fairly high in sodium. But the nutritional trade-off is different from a basic refined flour waffle. You're getting substantially more protein and whole grains, which can make the meal more substantial. And there's a second Kodiak option that is even more interesting. It's home-style power waffles, with no added sugar. The product lists 16 grams of protein and 0 grams of added sugar per serving. That's a very different nutritional profile from the dessert-like breakfast many people imagine when they hear the word waffle. Our second pick is Vince Power Grains Protein Waffles. Vince's current product information lists 10 grams of protein, 3 grams of fiber, and 170 milligrams of sodium per 2 waffle serving for its protein original variety. It uses a grain blend that includes whole wheat, oats, millet, and brown rice. And the company says the product is non-GMO verified and contains no artificial flavors. Again, the word healthy should not replace the label. There are still 6 grams of added sugar in that serving, but compared with many basic toaster waffles, the protein, fiber, and sodium numbers make the trade-off easier to understand. And our third pick takes a different route. Nature's Path Homestyle Waffles. The current product listing describes these as organic, whole grain, vegan, and gluten-free. A 2 waffle serving is listed with roughly 260 milligrams of sodium and 5 grams of sugar. The reason this makes the list isn't because organic automatically means better. It's because the product can fit shoppers who specifically want a plant-based, gluten-free, whole grain option. So what did we actually learn? First, never confuse a recall with a permanent verdict on a brand. A recall is tied to specific products, dates, lots, or manufacturing circumstances. Second, never let a front-of-box claim do the nutritional thinking for you. Organic, multigrain, gluten-free, reduced fat, and protein-packed all tell you something. None of them tells you everything. Third, serving size matters. 2 waffles can look small, but the label is where the real comparison happens. And finally, frozen waffles are not automatically bad. The better question is, what are you getting for the calories, sodium, added sugar, fiber, and protein? A waffle should be convenient. It should also make sense for the breakfast you're building around it. So next time you stand in front of the freezer, don't just grab the box with the biggest smile on the package. Turn it around. Read the serving size. Check sodium and added sugar. Look for whole grains and protein. And if there's a recall notice, verify the exact product and date before eating it. Because the smartest grocery shopper isn't the person who memorizes 10 bad brands. It's the person who knows how to read the box. If this investigation helped you see the freezer aisle differently, like the video, share it with someone who buys frozen waffles, and subscribe for more evidence-based grocery investigations.